Even as the global economy takes a drastic hit because of the Chinese virus, otherwise known as COVID-19, the plunging oil prices has given an opportunity to India to beef up what is called its strategic oil reserves and also make up for some of the financial deficit in the budget by continuing to price the petroleum products in the country at the same level as it has been doing for some months now. In Simply Nitin this week, I will speak to you about what is strategic oil or strategic petroleum reserve and why it was started by different countries and bigger nations across the world, and what is India's position on that. So the story goes back to 1973 when the oil producing nations decided as the bloc of OPEC countries to put an embargo on oil exports to especially the US. Then the United States decided it needed to have something to fall back upon, and that's when the concept of strategic petroleum reserves was born. That strategic petroleum reserves is now followed by almost every country of significance in this world. So totally around the world, the nations put together, big nations, big oil consuming nations like the United States, India, China and other Southeast Asian countries or even in Europe, all of them put together have kept a reserve of 4.1 billion barrels of oil, of crude oil essentially, stored in various locations in every country, almost every country of significance. Why is that? Because all of them who are dependent on their energy resources or their energy needs on crude oil essentially need to have some kind of a backup in case there is a disruption, in case there is a cut in oil supplies by the oil producing nations. Now, as I said, 4.1 billion barrels across the globe is the reserve. The highest is with the United States at 727 million barrels, which is essentially 60 days of supplies for the United States itself. The Chinese have also built up strategic reserves because their line of communication, their line of supplies is vulnerable because it's a long logistics chain going through Indian Ocean, going through the Malacca Straits, and the Chinese have the Malacca dilemma. Therefore, they have kept a reserve of 684 million barrels, which is essentially 90 days of supplies for the Chinese economy. So India has 132 million barrels of oil reserves kept aside for any emergency. India has 5 different locations where these crude oil is stocked for emergencies, and those locations are Mangalore, Udupi in Karnataka, Visakhapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, Jajpur in Odisha and Bikaner in Rajasthan. Essentially, India imports crude oil and specially stocks up the crude oil when the prices are down. And in the past 2 weeks, the crude oil prices have gone below $30 a barrel, which is quite a low from what it was, say, even 6 months ago, which was trading at $75 a barrel. So India is now stocking up amidst all this economic crisis. India is stocking up its oil reserves and also buying for future by paying advance payments to, by making advance payments to the oil suppliers. So in every crisis, there is an opportunity. As I mentioned, these crude oil reserves are meant for emergencies. Now, is that enough to run Indian economy if there is a disruption like what has happened because of the Chinese virus? Of course it is enough, but this is something that India has to fall back upon in longer disruptions. So this is what is called strategic petroleum reserves. This was born out of a crisis in 1973, which was a man-made crisis. And now in 2020, there is an opportunity for India and other developing nations to stock up their crude oil reserves so that in the future, in case there is another disruption, global disruption like this, India does not have to then pay through its nose pay exorbitant prices to oil producing countries, because oil is very volatile in terms of pricing. Today it is less than $30 a barrel. Tomorrow, because of some crisis, and if Russia and the Gulf countries come to an understanding, then the oil prices could go up again to beyond $50 a barrel. That is why all big nations plan for emergencies, and that is where the strategic petroleum or strategic oil reserves come in handy. This is handled in India by the Petroleum Ministry. It has a special purpose vehicle to handle the transactions for this kind of an emergency and for storing crude oil for the future. For the moment, that's all I have for you today. But don't forget to like our program, send comments, and also follow us on social media handles on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. And next week, I'll come back with more. I am Nitin Gokhale.